everybody. Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is the Schaftlein Report. It's Tuesday's edition. We're broadcasting from Southern California and from the great state of Connecticut. Joe Visconti. Welcome back to the show. I hear you've been going through a lot of publicity there in the great state of Connecticut, Joe.
Yeah, sure have. We did a front page piece. It was all on Trump, and it was pretty interesting. I went right to the edge, with my pro-Trump stuff. But when we get into the we'll and all that, we'll pick it up then. We'll have some fun.
That's a tease to start out the show, Joe. So look, hey, let's talk about what's going on in headlines right now. What do you think is going on in China right now, Joe? I mean, it's more than just the media played it up as COVID lockdown protests. Joe, it's a lot more than that. Explain for our audience.
Well, Apple, as you know, shut down the the AirDrop, which is important for people not understanding. If you were in a crowd of 1,000 people and you all put AirDrop on, you all could, within so many feet of each other, share photos, memes, anything by AirDropping without having to email or text. And so they shut that down day before this happened. So we see the coordination of Apple with China, and we actually know what's coming out on Twitter because Musk is going to release all the Twitter information about let's just call it the censoring of the New York Post article. And I believe Apple's part of it because Apple threatened to take Twitter off their app. So we see Apple here almost like a spy agency embedded in so many government workings of government, whether they were leading it or just participating by law. I can't tell you, but this is bad. And this is how we did our Arab Spring with those iPhones. If you remember, the CIA dropped those things in and set up everything so you could have a government overthrown. In this case, I think it's bad, and I think there's so many people, millions of them, that have had it. They don't know what the answer is, except for really China getting much more violent on their people. But it's all going to be on TikTok. They're checking phones right now. If you haven't caught the news, China is grabbing phones from everybody.
I saw that.
Checking what apps they have, Instagram, etc. So this is happening there before it happens here. We've seen some of this play out in Europe, and it's all, I think, it's what they're screaming: free speech. Everybody wants to be free.
Yeah, and they do. But what the interesting thing about it, Joe, is the Chinese people want freedom. Yes,
that's what I mean.
Yes, they do. But the government, just like you and I both know, a zero COVID policy is impossible. It does not work. You can't stop COVID. It's out there. There's zero chance a zero COVID policy works. And the censorship that they're doing to their own citizens. I mean, Joe, these are real protesters out there. I mean, unlike people in this country, these are people that are high risk because the massive surveillance system in China, these people could be put in jail, they could be tortured, they could be beaten, someone could be killed, and we would never know about it.
I think the piece we're missing, and I did mention, I believe on your show, either I hosted it or I talked with you about this months ago when the tankers, the super tankers, and all the ships that go into right over on the west coast of Long Beach were backed up, and there was aerial shots of thousands of them in the bay off of Shanghai. And so these people aren't working. They're locked up. So the missing link we're not being told is what's going on with manufacturing in China, with the backlog of ships that can't get into Long Beach, that can't go across the world. And the factories are not operating, evidently, with all these people. So there's a whole problem we're having that no one's speaking about manufacturing, where the lockdowns and output. It's much, much more than just.
Well, I
don't think it is COVID. I don't think it's COVID.
Well,
I think they're doing it for a different reason.
I agree with you. And there was an analyst on talking about Apple earlier today on CNBC about the fact that iPhone production from this Foxconn factory, that they could be down millions of units. They were talking about maybe 10 to 20 million units short of being able to ship. And I'm sitting here saying, we know Apple cozies up with the Chinese Communist Party. That's not news. Okay, it happens. We know that technology companies, who a lot of their growth depends on China, and their valuations of their stocks, they're cozying up to the Chinese Communist Party. So, Joe, I don't think we've seen the end of this at all. I think this is the beginning of it. But
I think this will have ramifications in backlog of shipments from soup to nuts in America and other countries for exporting.
Yeah.
And they're doing it for a reason, I believe, it's probably a very simple reason. China's doing it, because they wouldn't lock their people up if they had to put them in factories. And I just think that this is economic. Mm-hmm. This is an economic war, or the makings of an economic war. The things that are happening in Taiwan, also where the chips are made, is right across the way. So there's a lot of moving pieces that I believe have nothing to do with COVID itself. But I think that people in China, there's so many of them that they'd starve to death. If you take that machine that they have running from their supermarkets to their little apartments to everything that they do, you take one thing out of whack. It's not like America where you got back roads and trains and it's sloppy and you can just get a U-Haul. It's all a mechanized machine, and if the people don't follow, they'll starve or die. So I don't know how the revolution would manifest over there.
Well, I mean, we're going to keep a close eye on it. And there is more to the story here, folks. That's the point, I think, Joe, that you're making. And I 100% agree with you on that. Hey, let's shift to domestic politics just a minute here. What do you make about what's going on in Georgia now? I mean, I'd seen some news stories that Warnock was ahead 3 or 4 points. I saw something out today saying the race is tied. Joe, is it all going to come out to turnout in Georgia? What's the key to winning the Georgia runoff election?
Well, it's Breitbart and Drudge and the rest of the, the organizations that put out feeds from everywhere on news media. If you're not watching it at home, at work, they've been showing the turnout in Fulton County insane, like 100% turnout, because they were able to vote 2 days ago. I think Friday began the early voting. Sunday was the greatest day ever, they said. So this is not good for Walker. I think they're going to turn over every stone. They have plenty of time, Democrats. And I know Kemp has his apparatus that he's lent to Herschel. So we're not seeing that manifest the way you will in a county because it's spread out throughout the whole state of Georgia. But I'm hoping and praying that Kemp's apparatus to get out the vote and his machine is working, and we're not getting reports of it, but we are getting reports of Fulton County.
Yeah, they had large turnout. They opened the voting on Saturday, which with this Georgia Supreme Court had allowed them to do. Look, the point is this, and I mean, here's my question: how many minds can be changed? I mean, if you're a Warnock voter, you're voting for him. If you're a Walker voter, you're voting for him. I saw anecdotal pieces and made a couple of phone calls. There's only like 3% of the electorate that they're trying to focus on. I mean, they're not changing votes. So, Joe, I mean,
it'll be an increase in what didn't come out for the general election. That's what they're working on. They got to get out. Both sides have to get out what came out, and they have to get out what didn't come out. They definitely know what didn't come out. I don't know what that number is, but I got to think it's 15%. 20% that didn't show. I don't think they had more than 80-85%.
No, the turnout was actually good in Georgia. Contrary
I don't think it was presidential. It may be a presidential turnout. That's what we're dealing with right now.
So you're on the same page as me. Whatever side turns out their base is going to win.
Well, look at Trump. He lost it by, what was the number there?
10,000,
12, 15?
Yeah.
8,000. It was 8,000. So I think you're going to get that kind of thing. It's going to get right down to the numbers. And I don't know if they tally in Georgia and show the numbers. I doubt it, that they'll put out what the vote tally is. But I think Kemp is all over this. He's looking to make sure that there's nobody wants shenanigans like Maricopa County.
No.
And we get a Maricopa County problem over there.
No, they're not. They had a clean election this past one, so let's not conflate Arizona too.
No. Maricopa had 42% of the county went down for 3 or 4 hours, and it did.
I know that, but what I'm saying is Georgia didn't. Georgia had a clean election.
No, exactly. But if they had that kind of thing, nobody wants that, and I think Kemp doesn't want that. Everybody wants to make sure this is really running right, and there's no problems that way there. They can move past 2020. Right. Stacey Abrams and all that stuff.
Now, the Virginia congressman who passed away, Don McEachin, He died. That leaves the House now, Joe, 222 to 212. It was 222, 213. They have to hold an election to replace him because he was just reelected. He was going into his fourth term, and I guess he was fighting colorectal cancer and he lost his battle. So a new election is going to take place in 2023. But we will now, Joe, start out the House with 434 members instead of 435, because you cannot appoint someone to Congress like you can the Senate. So, right. Joe, McCarthy's up for election. Now there's going to be 434 people voting. How do you see the situation with McCarthy right now?
I think the right wingers are, the Freedom Caucus, they're looking for some of the procedural changes that we've talked about before, which they're not wrong. It is a good time to do the procedural changes. They're beneficial to everyone. And I don't think McCarthy is as interested. I think that's going to get worked out and they'll get some of what they want. But the Republicans have to hold tight with McCarthy. He's raised $500 million.
Right.
He's a rainmaker, number one. And listen, everything we're talking about, at the bottom line of every issue is money. Yeah. Money, fundraising. And if you move away from that and think it isn't, and not that money is everything, but money means I believe. Money means I'm going to invest. Money means I'm taking a chance. I'm investing in thoughts, ideas, policies, etc. And without the money, I've run for office without money, and you're not winning. Yeah. So your message isn't going to get out there. So nothing happens without that. He is a rainmaker, and so he'll take it. He'll take it. And I think some of the procedural changes they wanted, like everybody reading the bill, having enough time.
Seems like a reasonable approach to me. I mean,
And so the neat thing about them contesting him is that it makes a case for him to tell a Democrat, say, listen, these are reasonable. And at the same time, I'm fighting for my life over here. So,
they threw out some of the alternatives. I mean, if these 5 right wingers, and again, when I look at the Freedom Caucus, it's not a monolithic group. I'm saying Marjorie Taylor Greene supports McCarthy. Jim Jordan supports McCarthy. O'Connor, the guy who was on Meet the Press, he supports McCarthy. So it's a small group, but they can only afford to lose 4. Okay, now that assumes everybody votes. So at the end of the day, I'm in your camp. I think McCarthy wins. I don't want to see any shenanigans leading up to that. I want things to be worked out to where we have a smooth vote and we get off to a good start. Because I really think they will. And on another subject, which is not on your list here, but again, this leadership in the House and their committees, I just think they did a disservice launching this investigation against Biden and his son when they did it. They did not need to do that. That actually, I believe, triggered a private or whatever, investigator on Trump. Right. And there was no reason to do those. We should play it low key, low profile. Exactly. Get the power, get the reins, do a lot more quiet, like the old backroom deals where you're very secretive. And the flash, I think this is how the country comes together. The days of flash and gotcha and in the moment and clickbait and all the headlines, I think that's going to get old and fade. And people are going to go back more to that more conservative, don't tell everything you know. Right. Not everything is a selfie, political selfie. And I think McCarthy brings that. He's that guy. He's not as secretive as Paul Ryan, even though I'm sure he works with Paul Ryan. He's not that secretive, but he's got the personality that's go along. You feel true around him. I think Kevin McCarthy will be an exceptional speaker. I'll go out on a limb and say that I think he's doing a lot of great things for the party, and I'm totally comfortable with him there, and I hope the rest of the party gets behind him, as most people are, and I'm optimistic. Now, having said that, Joe Visconti, let's dig our teeth into what we really know. We can talk about issues, and we're going to get into some other things in Newsday, but look, in the real bottom line, everything towards 2024 begins realistically 1st of January. Now, I know Trump's jumped ahead, but word's out there. Okay, couple things. There's talk about Glenn Youngkin 2024. This is not new news. You and I have talked about this. Glenn Youngkin has done everything right in Virginia. Now, you have some different thoughts, and I'm not going to bring up DeSantis yet. I'll let you handle that one. But Youngkin did a great job. He flipped the 10-point state blue to red. He's done everything he said he would. And in my humble opinion, on the abortion issue, which crushed us in this last election,
Lindsey Graham.
well, Glenn Youngkin is against what Lindsey Graham proposed. Glenn Youngkin said, look, Dobbs was overturned, it returned to the state, it's a state's issue. But certain people, like Frank Cannon, chief strategist at a group called Pro-Life America, who basically comes out and says, Youngkin's right on every issue. I agree with him. But if he doesn't come around on this, we can't support him. That kind of thinking will lead you to lose elections. But Joe, give me your thoughts. Trump, DeSantis, Glenn Youngkin. Yeah. How do you see things?
We'll start with the abortion issue. What has to happen? And I saw it right here in Connecticut. I mean, right here, Blumenthal,
right.
Leora, you name it. It was, and the women were coming out. That's a one-hit wonder, I call it. Everybody knew that they used that as a ruse, almost like BLM in 2020. They used it as a ruse. The dog isn't going to hunt again in another issue. The reality, it's a state's issue. Supreme Court ruled. If you want to change the Supreme Court, good luck with that. But that's not going to happen. Legally, that was deficient for 50 years. Right. How it was never challenged is beyond us. But let's just say the Republicans don't say they're not pro-life. It's in their the bylaws and
it's in their platform.
In their platform. I'm sorry. And so, just leave that. There's nothing, again, there's no reason to push it. Women have the right to choose in their states. It's up to the state people. If you believe it in your state that doesn't have abortion, then Republicans just say, go out and vote and do whatever you want in your state.
Exactly.
But the federal candidates aren't going to help you, and we're not passing a federal law that's not going to be constitutional.
Right.
It's not going to hold up the Constitution. So it's moot, and I think that'll finish itself. As far as Youngkin, he's a great guy. So here's my thinking on the whole picture. I'll go out on the moon and shoot a flare off over here. I think what happens, and why I brought DeSantis up with you off camera, DeSantis is the key for, I don't want to say never Trumpers, but for somebody else wanting to be president. Whether it's the Republicans and the different groups, without DeSantis announcing or saying something. Every day he doesn't mention, I won't run and I'm going to be a governor. Every day he doesn't do that, there's another day to wait to see if something breaks negative against Trump bad. And if it doesn't, then he hangs out there. Why I say that, this is important, what DeSantis does is, without DeSantis, Youngkin, Pence, Nikki Haley, none of them will get in the race because they need to get a collective number that doesn't want Trump. And right now I think he's at 60%. And so what that means is you've got to get enough candidates to mount, I believe, it's a big picture, enough. And they know that. They don't want to get in there with 6% that approval or 3%. So I think what's happening is there's a lot of jockeying in the holidays, and they're waiting to see what's going to happen, blah, blah, blah. But anyone who would like to get in with their platform, I think they all know whether they talk or not, they know that they have to get in together. They got to come in collectively. And if DeSantis doesn't want to join the club, there's so much money involved in this, then they all come in and they get picked off by Trump one by one. Little Marco, which I put in the Hartford Current, my quotes, a Lion Ted. It becomes like that kind of thing. And they can't take that with 2, 3, 5%. DeSantis, 25, 30%, and you add Nikki Haley and the rest of them, all of a sudden they got 45, 50%. And that becomes CNN. That becomes the fodder of National Review and Wall Street Journal, New York Post. They all are lined up against Trump now. Then they start to give them all the media they want. But one at a time, I don't think they come at them that way.
Well, I don't see any reason for DeSantis to do anything right now. I mean, he just won an election by 20 points. I mean, literally, I don't think until the Florida legislature has their session in 2023, I can't remember what month it is, I see no reason for him to do anything at this point. He's raised a boatload of money, is continuing to raise money, and I think he is. DeSantis right now, I saw a vision of him because he really reminds me of Ronald Reagan, the way he's polished. Yeah.
And I don't think he wants to be a Reagan Ford 76. And I remember that because I actually worked as a sound engineer and worked with Jimmy Carter and President Ford. And when I was a stagehand recording his thing in Hartford, I worked with both presidents, unbelievable, personally. And I don't think he wants to be a Ted Kennedy to Jimmy Carter. Not that Trump is Carter and Ford, but those kind of things. And so I think he's not, and plus those people were honorable. They were wild men, but they have no shame like Trump. I mean, you know what I'm saying? And so I don't know if he wants that. I think they wait to see if a shoe drops with January 6th, or if a shoe drops with Mar-a-Lago, or this new thing that I heard, I didn't even know, that General his chief of staff mentioned before, that Trump asked him to
I mean, John Kelly you're talking about?
John Kelly to use the IRS to investigate Mueller and Comey. And that was out the other day. I hadn't heard that, but he had publicly stated that. So they're looking, that's coming out in trials and all kinds of grand jury stuff. That's a bad one if it happened. So the establishment and the White House is looking at searching out IRS agents all the way down the pike to see who gave a command, because they were audited severely. And so that's the worst thing of beyond January 6th and beyond anything they could get with Mar-a-Lago. So those things are just assaults to the New York attorney. And so I think DeSantis or anybody who'd want to get in the game is like, you're trying to get on an on-ramp. If you're in Route 15 in Connecticut, there's a highway still, the old days, with a short on-ramp. There's a stop sign, and you're waiting for a break in the traffic to get in, right. Without crashing. And so they're waiting for an opening.
I'm in your camp on this. They're going to wait for there's an opening. They'll keep raising their money. And at the end of the day, we're going to have a primary, and there will be other people involved. If Trump wins, he wins. If he doesn't, he doesn't. But there will be other people involved. I think
they're coming in, when they do come in. If they can't find an opening, they're coming in exploratory.
Yeah.
They're not going all in.
Speaking of exploratory, the Republican National Committee, I keep having a problem here. The Republican National Committee is setting up, let me make sure I get this right, an election review headed by Haley Barbour. Haley Barbour's veteran strategist. And Joe, you and I have talked about this, you specifically. Republican Party's up against big tech, the media, and in my opinion, the biggest thing we got to overcome, early voting. Okay. Again, I look back on what happened in the election, and again, to do a postmortem on what we already know, and we just got done talking about it. If we make a litmus test on abortion, we'll lose. We cannot have that as a litmus test like Frank Cannon is suggesting. I mean, I think we need to go through. You can't have that. You can't have that. But we do have to figure out, the early voting piece, and we got to get our voters to vote early too, because you just can't. That's an obvious one, and you and I have talked about it. So we know the big tech.
I'm going to pitch something on your show that I'm working on a book right now, which I actually sent Brandon a little snippet of what I'm working on.
Okay.
Because I'm going to be heavily involved. And it actually is opposing Trump, believe it or not. I'm the Trump king over here. And it's not opposing per se, but there's nobody that can get to Trump if he stays in, becomes a nominee. And here's what has to happen generally. And I can see what you're speaking about, that they want to do this, Haley Barbour. But what will end up happening is you'll have fractured congressional candidates, Senate candidates, with all that we just saw coming back out, and that whole war with McCarthy funding this and Mitch McConnell funding that whole thing will repeat. I think Trump needs to stay out of it. The RNC needs to work as much as it can to work with them. Mm-hmm. And if Trump is the man, or it's DeSantis in the end, I don't know how that's going to roll out. Starting soon, we need 7 states, North Carolina, Georgia, Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. We need $1 billion, and we need 10,000 employees for whatever organization, whether it's a PAC, RNC, or Trump campaign. And they have to be dedicated professionals plus volunteers. Money goes down to them. Real money. This has not happened. Volunteers get stipends, and we move. This is a 7-state election. Not a dime should go anywhere else. And this is important. Let me finish my little preview. This will be the forward of the book you're going to read. And in that, we will farm and prepare to find the new administration within those professionals that we built that organization in the swing states. So we don't come out with I don't want to say S show, because I was with General Flynn and had a job all set when he got picked up by the FBI. Cousins and brothers and anybody who worked on a campaign were getting hired in positions they didn't know what they were doing. And the RNC doesn't have the people either. So what we need is I'm calling it 10,000. I'm talking professionals with all the things that we do with data mining and all that, but employees, and this is huge money put into those swing states. And we're replicating what the government unions and the permanent welfare class are doing with the Democrats in those swing states. And then we find our administration within that body politic of pros that can transition right into an administration. That didn't happen in 2016.
That is a good future read, Joe Visconti, and that is a great promo you just cut for your book, because I happen to agree with everything you just said there. I think you and I have talked about this. We're not going to have a 50-state election. It's 7 states. That's what it is. The other 43 states, you and I are sitting here today, we already know how they're going to vote. There's not even a mystery behind it. Democrats
and DeSantis proved it. And DeSantis took Texas was taken off the table, and Florida got taken off the table.
And Ohio. Yeah.
And Ohio. So we don't have to worry about those.
No. The election is 7 states. You and I know that.
And the cash, and I'm pushing for people not to give Trump a dime. Listen to this. You're going to hear it out there. People are going to get angry at me. Don't give him a dime. Don't give anybody a dime until either the Republican Party in some joint effort, but it's true, real employees with a plan that's broadcast in the Wall Street Journal. And here's what's going to happen. We only win the country through the swing states. We're not going to blame voter fraud. We're not going to blame drop boxes. Even if all that happened or partially happened, our machines down, we're going to be there with lawyers. And I'm talking personnel that are employees, and not have a Brad Pascal if it's
and
Trump.
You need a CEO
with a gun to his head. Remember that? Brad Pascal with a gun to his head?
I know.
We're not putting those people in charge.
No. People like, no. We need a CEO to run that organization. That's exactly what we need. We don't need a Ronna McDaniel. We don't need it needs to be a CEO type quality individual. And I got to tell you something. We've got some good ones. I mean, there's some good.
Go ahead, because I believe the money is in the body politic. I'm getting 75 emails from Trump every day. Nobody's giving to him right now. They're not bringing the cash in. Nobody wants to see a rally election anymore.
No,
God bless it. Or vote parade election anymore. If he ends up being the nominee or whoever, however it rolls, I believe the Republicans, the 70 to 80 million of them, will cough up the cash when they see the business plan and the business model, how it's going to be done, soup to nuts, ground floor all the way up, built, pictures and images every month. So it's not a con. It's not a Trump Tower when he had people in a space and nobody was working. Listen, I was inside sitting there with everybody, part of them all, and nobody was working. It was volunteers from the Tea Party that all of us joined and got him elected. We didn't get that.
No, we got to have a CEO running this situation. It can't be political hacks. It can't be Brad Pascalis of the world. That type of situation. No. I mean, I'm 100% in your camp there, Joe. Let me ask you a couple things here. Okay, we got news of the day. Did you get where Biden has already walked back? Not Biden, the press secretary. They've already walked back his gun comment. I mean, you heard exactly what he said. So did I. And the White House, they have a funny way about gaslighting the American public. Folks, gaslighting is when you make a statement, lie, and say you didn't do it. I mean, they're gaslighting you. He said it.
Well, it's been going on. And again, I'll say this, because America's kind of funny. You're my age, and we remember the hula hoop. We remember the slinky. You remember the Cabbage Patch doll. We were probably parents then. We remember all that stuff. And that's how America is. You got to not cut pop culture out of America. America's not going to want to see the shtick again after a while. You know, Topo Gigio was okay on Ed Sullivan for a few times, and then people got tired of Topo. In other words, they get tired. They can see through it anyway, and they're going to get fatigued with the Biden shtick. Like they got fatigued with the Trump shtick. And if they don't change their shtick and add a little different dimension, like Madonna or Elvis gets in leather instead of what he did, or a jumpsuit, you got to show him a different look. And if Trump can't do that, he won't win. And if the Democrats don't change it up, and I think they're going to replace Biden no matter what they tell us today.
Yeah, let's talk about that a minute, because if Biden, we're going to hear if he's going to run in probably January, February at the latest. Okay. No one's coming out opposing him right now. Okay. Do you have the opinion that, he's going to screw up something so bad, or maybe something when Musk releases this stuff that was suppressed on Twitter, which people now acknowledge was suppressed on Twitter, the Hunter Biden stuff. People don't care about Hunter Biden, but I think, Joe, they do care if President Joe Biden received money, kickbacks at all as a result of actions that his son.
Well, that's the thing that's going to turn. This is important because this karma. I call it karma. Whether it's politics or life karma, the suppression of the New York Post article really cost Trump the election beyond any other problem. It did that. If that was out and it wasn't censored by the intelligence community, everything, blah blah blah, then that the results showed that this would have occurred. And so it's karmic that it's coming out now. I think it's going to be so devastating when it does come out that Biden won't run, and it'll take health reasons. I believe when you look at political moves, when this is important, when Governor Newsom came out the other day and endorsed Biden, that was the move that showed he's going to be the nominee, Newsom. That was a gift out of the blue that pushed Kamala out of the way. And when this thing transpires, they would rather run Biden against Trump. They believe they can beat it again. Newsom would rather run against DeSantis because that's how the game is. But all in all, if they need a backup, it's going to be Newsom. I don't care what anybody says. And the guy's a good-looking guy. He won't be a lot. He can lie better. And so, not that I like this, but what I mean is that's the guy for them. He's polished. He's savvy. And I think they're going to have him run, but none of that can be seen yet. But that gesture that he made to endorse him without asking was, I bow and kiss your ring. You're the president. And when Biden has to get out, he at least knows that the person who already said, and that's, I believe, what DeSantis should do soon in a few months. Say, you know what?
So let me summarize what you're saying here, because I think you're onto something. You're basically saying if it appears that Trump's going to be the nominee, Biden will be the nominee of the Democratic Party, because the Democrats already know. They know they can beat Trump with Biden. All they got to do is put him in the closet, put him in the Rose Garden. They'll run a Rose Garden strategy, and we know how that one turns out. But you're also saying if it appears that Trump's not going to be the nominee, they do not want to see an 82-year-old man going up against 46-year-old good-looking man, good-looking wife, young kids run DeSantis. They don't want to see that. So now, if it's DeSantis or pick your name, let's just say it is DeSantis. Then they're saying, wait a second, this is a bad look. This is not going to work.
Biden and Trump can both get taken out because of legalities.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
We call this in baseball squeeze play.
Squeeze play.
We are in a squeeze play right now. Okay. You hear? Politically, in the next 3 to 6 months, we're in a squeeze play. Okay, maybe even until next September. But next September is too late. You got to run for president much earlier. Too far away.
Too far away. So your point is the power brokers in the Democratic Party are going to look at this, and they're going to see the inside polling numbers. They're going to see how this thing's going to play out, and they're going to say, we cannot have an 82-year-old bumbling president running against a young Trumpian policy, but not all the baggage that Trump has. And they say, what's our alternative? And you know what? Forget Kamala. She's tied into Biden. I think you're right. I look, we see Newsom all.
I put this in the Sunday paper, Hartford Courant front page article 2 days ago, that Trump will be indicted. And he will. I don't care what the premise is or how they do what they do. They will indict him, whether he gets perp walked or blah, blah, blah. They're coming after him. They're not going to stop. And a lot of the articles, what's the response? But beyond the article, the same thing, or if that happens and all of the New York Post and Twitter comes out with everything they're doing and we see it all, and all of that is right there and it's not prosecuted, this country is going to go nuts. Okay, and there's no way they don't indict him. There's just absolutely no. They've got the grand juries. They'll do it. They need to do it, and this is why the Republicans should have let Biden go. They should not have gone after his son publicly or him. Just let a dead dog lie or a sleeping dog lie. Okay, and they did that, and they caused a lot of that because the Republican establishment, wants Trump gone.
Yeah.
Okay, and they actually caused the prosecutor. But the only moving part we can't know is the public. We do know this part. No matter what the gas prices are, or invasions, or borders, or Ukraine, no matter what, the public will still vote Democrat. So that is not anymore, after 2022 midterms, anymore to be challenged as I wonder if the population would turn on us. They will never turn on the Democrats. All you can do is increase turnout to win. That they will never turn on them. So what you're left as a moving part are judges, and it's DC judges and juries. We know that. So where are the moving parts for Trump indicted or Biden's information getting exposed? I believe on the left, when Biden's information is exposed through Twitter and everything we're going to see, it will be Al Gore and the Clinton administration renting the Lincoln bedroom and saying there is no governing authority that will do anything and could do anything. And that's where we're going to be left with, that double standard anger. But it won't matter because they just proved to us publicly, the Democrats, that no matter what they do, gas through the roof, everything, that they'll still put in the Fettermans and the Bidens. So they don't worry about that. The only question is will there be violence 2020 happening on the right because of this injustice?
Well,
that's the only variable.
For the people who like the conspiracy theories, I'm going to lay one out for you, and then we got 30 seconds to close it out. I will tell you this. If it looks like it's Ron DeSantis as the nominee, you are going to quietly have Democrats going like this if stuff starts to come out about Joe Biden taking money, because they're going to recognize, we're going to lose this. Joe, health reasons, it's time for a new generation, pass the baton, and we'll make you look statesmanlike, but Joe, you're not going to run. I mean, that's what, and Kamala, you're not.
I think at that point, a lot of them get in. Buttigieg gets in. A lot of them get in, and then they rightfully should, so they can vet themselves. Right. They can debate. They can polish. They can draw the eyeballs to like. Newsom's this movie star. Come on, he was married to Don Jr.'s girlfriend.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, listen. I don't like the guy, but I can spot a guy. When I saw Obama, I said he's polished. You know.
Oh, he's polished, all right. Yeah, he's polished. There's no question. All right. Well, we had a lot of other topics we'll talk about on another show later on. But Joe,
this was good.
This was good stuff. No, okay. And final thing, 30. I'm gonna give you the final 30 seconds. What was the reaction to your front page article? What's been the reaction to it?
It was a front page article. It was Leora beating the establishment. The Trump world is still alive here, and I don't know. I really went out on the edge because I was in a position, so many rallies that I would never break the law like that or do any of those things. And I've proven it by my rallies.
Right.
But to be there, I think the Connecticut establishment, that's the governor, all of them, they didn't know that the FBI was at my house. So that became a lot of silence from people and some messaging going, whoa. You know, because they got me a U.S. congressional candidate, governor candidate, town councilor, the whole bit. And I put it out there because the world needs to know that we got to stop this weaponization of our government. If anything, stop the weaponization of our government politically. It has hurt us so bad in this country, and we need to transition out of it. Democrats and Republicans, don't politicize the IRS, the NSA, the CIA, the FBI. Stop it. Clean house and don't do this. This is the worst thing. And that's what I pray for. No one wants violence. Please, let's move back to common sense rule of law.
With that comment, Joe Visconti, I will say thank you for the article. Thank you for joining me today. And when we speak next, boy, we're going to have a lot more to talk about. But Joe, again, thanks for the article. Thanks for joining me today. Thoughtful insight, provocative commentary, as always. Thanks again. And that's it for today, folks. So we'll be back tomorrow. Same bad time, same bad channel. And oh, by the way, for those of you that don't remember, Joe Visconti was our correspondent on the ground on January 5th and 6th. Thanks, Joe. See you later.